I saw my sister's face projected across the screen long before I saw her in person. Gold dress, perfect smile, the kind of smile people believe without question, the kind of smile that once fooled me too. But tonight, something else filled the screen behind her. My work, my projects, my name. And in the space between her breath and the audience's gasp, I realized something simple. I wasn't here for revenge. I was here to reclaim what had been taken from me. Before we continue, kindly comment the city where you are watching from, and make sure you subscribe to the channel so you never miss a new story like this. Now let's continue. I used to think a family could hide its cracks as long as the windows stayed clean. But the truth slipped out one quiet evening in our Raleigh living room. When Madison's laughter cut through the house like it owned the place, I remember standing by the hallway shelf holding a stack of college brochures, wondering why the air felt colder than it should have. That was the first moment I realized something was wrong. Madison Clark, my older sister, never walked. She glided. Every step seemed planned, every smile rehearsed. People loved her before she ever opened her mouth. She wasn't cruel in the traditional way. She was worse. She was the kind of person who let others do the praising for her. At school events, church picnics, even Saturday cookouts in our North Raleigh neighborhood, adults circled her like bees around a sunflower. She shined because everyone kept turning the light toward her. And me? I hung at the edges, quiet, polite, helpful. The kid who fixed routers, ran power cords at PTA meetings, and held jackets during award photos. I didn't envy her, not at first. I had my own world, coding notebooks filled with half-built apps, robotics kits on my bedroom floor, and a binder labeled Duke Dreams in blue marker. But every dream needs protection, and mine lived in a house where nobody cared enough to guard it. I started noticing small things disappearing. An envelope left unsealed after arriving in the mail. A volunteer form with my handwriting but mysteriously photocopied in Madison's backpack. A USB drive I had filled with competition files, suddenly gone. When I asked my mom, she shrugged. "You probably misplaced it, Jordan. You're always so busy." Busy. That was her polite word instead of important. One evening, while helping my dad unload groceries, I caught Madison in my room. She jumped when I opened the door, then flashed that sugary smile. Relax. I was borrowing a hair clip, but the drawer she stood near didn't hold hair clips. It held my application papers. Everything inside looked just slightly shifted, not removed, not lost. Shifted, as if someone had studied them. I told myself I was being paranoid. She was my sister. Sisters borrow makeup, clothes, chargers, not identities. Still, uneasiness settled in my chest. I tried pushing it away, focusing on my Duke portfolio, my coding projects, my small victories, the things I earned because nobody else cared to help. But every time Madison passed me in the hallway, something in her eyes lingered too long, like she was measuring me, or waiting. What exactly was she waiting for? And why did it feel like I was the only one who sensed a storm coming? Because one night, when the house was quiet and the kitchen clock clicked loud against the silence, a new envelope arrived with my name on it. A thick one, a hopeful one, yet somehow it vanished before morning. I didn't scream, I didn't accuse. I just stared at the empty spot on the counter and wondered when my family stopped being my family. But I had no idea that this was just the first crack. And the second was going to break the entire foundation. The morning my Duke dream felt real began quietly, with Carolina's sunlight slipping through my blinds and landing on the blue binder that held everything I'd worked for. I remember running my hand across the cover, the way someone might touch a fragile promise. Duke wasn't just a school to me. It was escape. It was the one place I believed I could finally exist without being compared to Madison every time I breathed. I spent that entire season building my application piece by piece, coding videos filmed in my bedroom, robotics photos from the NC State Fairgrounds, recommendation letters from Durham volunteers who called me the kid who fixed everything we broke. I stayed up late perfecting every detail, not because anyone pushed me, but because no one did. There was one night I keep replaying. I sat at the kitchen table sorting the final application package while my parents argued about Madison's senior year expenses. My mom waved a list of choir dresses and academic banquet tickets. My dad sighed the way men sigh when they've already surrendered. Not once did either of them glance at the pages in front of me. Madison walked by, humming, her perfume filling the air. She glanced at my work and gave a soft, almost bored giggle. "You're really sending all that?" I nodded. She smiled in a way that didn't reach her eyes. "Good luck, Geordie. Duke is intense. You sure you're up for it?" It was the first time I heard condescension drip from her voice, a tone that said she already decided the outcome, a tone that stayed with me long after she walked away. The day the letter came, I sat on the front porch with trembling hands. The envelope felt thinner than it should have. I opened it slowly, reading each line twice. My breath caught at the word "unfortunately." My vision blurred. It felt like someone had pulled a string inside my chest, and everything collapsed inward. My parents reacted the way people do when the news doesn't affect their favorite child. Maybe next year. "Don't make this dramatic. It wasn't meant to be, Jordan. Focus on something practical. Something practical. As if dreaming was a luxury I wasn't allowed to afford. I went to my room, closed the door, and stared at my coding trophies, little plastic figures with gold paint and no weight. But that night, as the house buzzed around Madison's upcoming pageant rehearsal, I noticed another shift. Madison seemed almost lighter, relieved. Like my rejection was good news for her. I tried brushing it off, tried burying the doubt under logic, but every instinct told me something wasn't right. The way she avoided my eyes at dinner, the way Mom kept changing the subject when I spoke, the faint smell of my perfume in Madison's room, a smell I recognized from the envelope that had vanished. A dream doesn't die in one moment. It dies in fragments, in hints, in silences, and mine had just started breaking. The worst part? I still had no idea what they'd done to me or how far they were willing to go. The discovery didn't happen like a movie scene. No dramatic music. No storm outside. It was an ordinary Tuesday, the kind where the air feels too still, like the world is holding its breath. I'd stopped by the house to grab a hard drive I'd forgotten in my desk. Nothing more. I wasn't supposed to be there long. But when I walked past Madison's room, her door was slightly open. Inside, I heard the faint click of a laptop keyboard. She wasn't typing fast. She was tapping cautiously, like someone trying to get away with something but not quite succeeding. "Mad? You home?" I asked softly. Silence. Then the quick shuffle of papers. I pushed the door open gently, and she spun around with a smile so bright it looked painful. "Jordan, oh my gosh, you scared me." But behind her, on her desk, was an envelope with my name on it, my handwriting, my Duke envelope. My stomach tightened. "What's that?" She slid her hand over it like someone covering a secret. "Nothing. Old mail. I was cleaning." Cleaning? Madison didn't clean. I stepped closer, ignoring the way her smile twitched, and there it was, the Blue Duke crest peeking out from beneath her arm. My pulse pounded. I reached for it, and she grabbed my wrist. "Stop," she said, not panicked, annoyed. "Why is my acceptance letter in your desk?" My voice trembled, but not from fear, from recognition, from the truth pressing against my ribs. Madison didn't deny it. She sighed dramatically, stood, and pulled the envelope free. "Fine. You want to know? I needed it." "You needed my identity?" I could barely form the words. She rolled her eyes like I was slow. "Jordan, come on. You know I wouldn't survive Duke's STEM program." Dad said it himself. "The family needs someone successful, someone polished." She pointed to herself. "That's me." My throat tightened. "So you just stole my future?" "It's not stealing," she said casually. "It's redirecting. You're smart. You'll figure something else out." My legs felt unsteady. I reached for the papers scattered across her desk, my essays with her name on them, my awards rewritten, even my medical documents, copied, labeled, rearranged. Then the worst part, my social security number printed at the bottom of a form, signed in her handwriting. "Mom and Dad know," she added quietly. They helped. My chest snapped open. "They what?" She shrugged like it didn't matter. "You weren't meant for Duke, Jordan. I am." They just corrected the path. When our parents walked in, faces stiff, excuses ready, I saw guilt nowhere. Not in their eyes, not in their voices. Mom stood behind Madison like a shield. "Don't make this bigger than it is. Your sister deserves this future. You'll be fine." "Fine?" The room spun. The walls felt too small. My own family standing together against me. And in that moment, I realized something I never wanted to believe. I was alone in that house. The door behind me felt like the only honest thing in the room, so I walked out. No suitcase, no goodbye. Just the clothes on my back and a phone in my hand. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I wasn't coming back. When I left home that night, Raleigh felt enormous, too bright, too loud, too unfamiliar for someone who'd never truly stepped outside her family's shadow. Alyssa picked me up from the edge of our neighborhood, her car door flying open before I even reached the curb. "Get in," she said. "No questions, no judgment." Charlotte became my refuge. Her apartment was small, warm, cluttered with half-finished art projects and the comforting smell of cinnamon candles. For the first time in my life, silence didn't feel like punishment. It felt like healing. But healing doesn't erase betrayal. It sharpens it. At first, I tried to focus only on my apprenticeship at Helix Core Tech. I was grateful just to have a place that valued my mind. The office sat off West Trade Street, sleek glass windows overlooking the hum of the light rail. Inside, everything felt structured, servers humming in steady rhythm, the soft clack of keyboards, whiteboards covered in algorithms. It was the opposite of my house. Predictable, honest. My mentor, Ms. Carter, noticed my drive in a way my family never had. "You learn fast," she said one morning, handing me access credentials for a new project. "You think faster." That sentence alone stitched something back inside me. But the more I settled into that new world, the clearer one truth became. Madison was living a life built on everything she stole from me. Every email she sent, every class she sat through, every scholarship meeting, my name was the foundation beneath her feet, and I couldn't let it stand. The plan didn't arrive all at once. It came in pieces, like puzzle fragments dropped across several weeks. The biggest piece fell one afternoon when I overheard two senior engineers discussing an upcoming education partnership event. Helix Core's sponsoring the Carolina Emerging Scholars Gala again, one of them said. "Duke's sending their top students this year." My heart paused. Duke, Gala, top students, Madison. It felt like the universe turned its head and finally looked at me. That night, I stayed late in the server room, the cool air brushing my skin, as I traced system logs for the scholarship program. I wasn't accessing anything illegal, I was reviewing partnership data that my role already authorized. But in that data, I found something chilling. A trail, a digital footprint, IP addresses, document timestamps, submission metadata, identity modifications. Every lie Madison built had been done through systems Helix Core partially monitored. And now I worked there. I saved nothing publicly. I didn't print. I didn't copy. I only studied, learned the pattern, understood the system. I needed to know how deep the theft went before I could decide what to do. Alyssa noticed something shifting in me. "You're quieter," she said one night as we folded laundry. Not sad. Just sharpening. I didn't deny it, because she was right. The world had taken something from me, and I was finally learning how to take something back. I stood by the window later that night, doing mental math. The gala would have donors, professors, news crews. Madison would be there, smiling, performing, pretending. A perfect audience, a perfect stage. The question wasn't whether I could expose her, it was whether I could do it so precisely that no one would ever doubt who the real scholar was. And the more I planned, the more one truth pulsed inside me. Madison had stolen my identity, but I was about to take back my name. The only thing left was deciding how far I was willing to go. The funny thing about lies is that they don't collapse all at once. They sag first, then they strain, then a single truth snaps the entire structure. And for Madison, the sagging began the moment she walked into her first Duke coding lecture, pretending she belonged there. I didn't see it in person. I heard it through whispers, screenshots, forwarded messages from old classmates who recognized my work. They didn't know about the theft, not yet. But they knew Madison, the girl who treated effort like an inconvenience, wasn't suddenly going to blossom into a STEM prodigy. One message hit harder than the rest. "Hey, didn't you build this robotics model last year?" Madison presented it today. Couldn't even explain how it moves. That was the first crack. Another followed from a lab partner. "Your sister froze during a simple debugging exercise, said her contacts were dry. Everyone knew she was lying." Then a professor's comment floated across social media. "Some students need tutoring, others need honesty." People speculated who he meant. I didn't have to wonder. The thing about Duke's STEM program is that it expects sweat. It expects late nights, burned fingertips from soldering circuits, the quiet thrill of getting a stubborn line of code to finally breathe. Madison had none of that in her bones. She had entitlement, she had polish, but she didn't have skill. And somewhere deep down, she knew it. Instead of learning, she avoided. Instead of growing, she hid. Group projects became shields she hid behind. Presentations became carefully rehearsed performances where she memorized just enough to glide past questions. But Duke professors weren't the type to be fooled by surface-level shine. They asked follow-ups. They dug deeper, and Madison cracked. One evening, scrolling through the Duke event page, I saw a familiar name, Madison Clark, honorary nominee for the Carolina Emerging Scholars Gala. The nomination wasn't based on merit, it was based on the identity she stole. I stared at her photo, bright smile, perfect makeup, flawless posture, as if she actually earned the praise written under her name. My chest tightened, not with jealousy, but with something heavier, something colder. She was building a life out of my ashes, and people were applauding her for it. But the closer the gala got, the more frantic her online behavior became. She reposted inspirational quotes. She bragged about achievements she couldn't explain. She mentioned working with Helix Core data logs, a sentence so hollow it scraped my nerves. Because I knew she couldn't read those logs, and I knew the people who wrote them. The tension twisted deeper when I overheard a conversation at Helix Core between two Duke liaisons preparing for the gala. Madison Clark is presenting her coding initiative, right? Yes, though her submissions don't match her performance. You notice too? I'm starting to think something's off. Another crack. Because for the first time, people besides me sensed the lie. But the truth hadn't reached the surface yet. The world still believed she was a rising star. Cameras were ready. Donors were excited. Faculty members planned speeches. And Madison? She needed that stage more than anything. It was her final chance to convince everyone, including herself, that she wasn't drowning in a future she stole. But lies run out of oxygen eventually, and the gala was going to be the moment she suffocated. The only question left was how loud the fall would be. The night of the gala felt unreal, like stepping into a life that could have been mine if the world had tilted a few degrees differently. The Raleigh Convention Center glowed against the evening sky, its glass entrance lit with warm gold that spilled onto Fayetteville Street. People arrived in elegant waves, professors in tailored suits, donors with practiced smiles, students clutching polished portfolios. But I wasn't walking in as a guest. I was walking in as the quiet storm no one saw coming. I kept my hood up as I moved through the lobby, blending into the crowds of volunteers and event staff. My Helix Corps badge hung under my jacket, unused, unseen, but powerful enough to open every digital door I needed. The plan wasn't messy. It wasn't dramatic. It was clean. It was precise. It was almost gentle. A Helix Corps engineer caught my eye at the back of the ballroom and gave a subtle nod. They weren't helping me break rules. They were helping uphold the truth. The gala's screens, projectors, and integrated presentation hub ran through the company's system, and I already had pre-cleared access for diagnostics. All I did was schedule a silent test run inside the system queue. A test run that wasn't a test. People think revenge requires rage, but in that moment, I felt calm, clear, not a tremor in my fingers. Not a quiver in my breath, just purpose humming through me like a steady current. Inside the ballroom, the stage shimmered with navy drapes, twinkling lights, and a massive projector screen displaying the Duke crest. Tables were set with white linens and tiny name cards shaped like oak leaves. The air smelled like citrus and warm bread, and the low murmur of academic optimism buzzed around the room. Then I saw her. Madison stood near the stage, wearing a gold gown that caught the light like she was trying to blind the world. She laughed too loudly. She smiled too widely. She clutched her note cards the way someone clutches a lifeline. A part of me almost felt sorry for her. Almost. But sympathy doesn't erase consequences. She needed this night. She needed the applause. She needed the validation. And that made it the perfect trap. The Helix Corps control booth sat above the audience. I slipped into the dimly lit space, put on a headset, and initiated the cued sequence. Only one line flashed across the system panel. Presentation override, Helix Corps authenticated. My heart beat once, heavy, certain. When the announcer stepped up to the microphone, the crowd quieted. Our next honoree, he said proudly, is a student whose achievements have captured the attention of both Duke University and the tech community at large, Madison Clark. Applause thundered. Madison ascended the stage like royalty. She placed her hand on the podium, inhaled, and began, "Thank you all so much. My journey into coding began." Then that was the moment I pressed the key. The screens flickered once, then twice. Gasps spread through the room. Then my work filled every inch of the ballroom. My coding portfolio, my robotics models, my original essays, application logs, timestamps, metadata, a copy of the email where Madison and my mother discussed altering my identity documents. The room froze. Madison stared at the screen, her face draining of color, her lips trembling as the lies she built collapsed around her like a dying star. My breath stayed steady. This was the moment my silence finally spoke. And the next moment, that would be the one she never recovered from. For a moment, the ballroom didn't breathe. It was as if every pair of eyes forgot how to blink. The screens glowed with the truth, my truth, and the silence cracked open like ice under weight. Then came the sound I'll never forget. A soft, stunned whisper rippling through the hall, turning into a rising wave of disbelief. "What is this?" someone murmured. "Is that Jordan's name on all the files?" Another whispered. "Wait, did she steal someone's identity?" Madison stood center stage, trapped under the light she once craved. Her hands shook. Her note cards slid from her fingers and scattered across the polished floor like fallen leaves. She looked small for the first time in her life, small and exposed, stripped of the perfection she'd worn like armor. "Turn it off!" she finally screamed, her voice cracking. "This is wrong. This isn't real." But the time-stamped documents didn't care about her panic. My essays with creation dates, my robotics videos with original metadata, my health forms with her forged signature, emails between her and our mother discussing how to adjust the narrative. One donor slammed his hand on the table. "This is fraud. This is scholarship theft." A professor rose from his seat, shaking his head with visible disgust. I interviewed her. "How did we miss this?" Madison stumbled backward, her gold gown shimmering like a fading lie. "It wasn't just me," she cried. "My parents said, they told me. They helped. She didn't finish." She saw the room change. She saw admiration turn into something sharp. A news reporter near the front row lifted her camera. "Are you admitting your family participated in academic fraud on live television?" Madison's breath hitched. She froze. And then her eyes found me. I was standing at the back of the hall now, hood lowered, no longer hiding. People parted as I stepped forward, not because I demanded space, but because the truth had already drawn a line between us. "Jordan," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Please, say something." I held her gaze for the first time in months, and I said nothing. Silence can be mercy, or it can be justice. Tonight, it was the latter. Security approached the stage. Event organizers scrambled. Faculty members reviewed the evidence displayed behind her as if trying to piece together how such an enormous betrayal had slipped into their institution. Then another voice rose, calm, authoritative, unmistakable. It was Mr. Hayes, Duke's Director of Academic Integrity. "Ms. Clark," he said, stepping toward the podium, "you are hereby suspended from all university programs pending an immediate investigation." Madison's knees buckled. "No, please, Jordan, help me." "Tell them you'll fix it." Fix it? After everything she destroyed? I stepped closer, stopping just a few feet from the stage. "It wasn't yours to take," I said quietly. Those 5 words echoed louder than any shout. Madison's face crumbled, tears streaking through her foundation as cameras captured every moment. In the corner of my eye, I saw my parents pushing through the crowd, faces pale, frantic. Mom looked at the screens as if seeing the truth for the first time. Dad reached for Madison as security guided her off stage, but the room wasn't done shifting. Not yet. Because standing near the rear exit, watching everything with calm interest, was someone I hadn't expected, Helix Corps' CEO, and the way he looked at me told me the night wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I didn't expect him to walk toward me, not the CEO of Helix Corps, not tonight. Not through a room full of outrage, murmurs, and collapsing illusions. But he did. His expression was steady, almost reflective. Like he'd been waiting for this moment longer than I had. "Jordan Clark," he said, stopping in front of me. "Walk with me." People parted again, not for a scandal this time, for something quieter, something that felt like truth settling into its rightful place. He led me toward the front of the ballroom, past the stunned donors, the shaken professors, the cameras still recording. My parents watched from the sidelines, pale and trembling. Madison sat on a nearby chair, held by a staff member, mascara streaking down her cheeks. She looked like a child who had touched fire and finally understood heat. When we reached the edge of the stage, the CEO turned to the audience. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "what you saw tonight was not a glitch. It was not an accident. It was a correction." The room quieted instantly. Helix Corps has partnered with Duke for years, and our commitment has always been to integrity. When one student rises by stealing the work of another, the entire system suffers. He nodded toward the screen, still filled with my projects, my data, my identity. These achievements belong to Jordan Clark. A breath I didn't know I was holding escaped my chest. Then he continued, his tone shifting into something warmer. And because the scholarship awarded under false identity is now void, Helix Corps has chosen a new recipient, one whose work stands on its own. My heart stumbled. "Jordan," he said, turning toward me, "we would be honored to fund your full academic scholarship to Duke University. Effective immediately." The room erupted, gasps, applause, scattered cries of disbelief. But I didn't hear most of it. My ears buzzed. My vision blurred at the edges. It felt like watching someone else's life through a window. My parents froze. Mom's hand covered her mouth. Dad reached for me, then hesitated, realizing he no longer had permission to play father in a moment he had thrown away. Madison stared at me with a hollow expression, as if I were a mirror showing a future she never earned. I didn't gloat. I didn't smile. I simply nodded and shook the CEO's hand, grounding myself in the truth that stood beneath my feet. My name, my work, my path. After the formalities ended, my parents rushed toward me. "Jordan, honey, please," Mom whispered, her voice trembling. "We didn't know it would go this far," Dad added. "Come home. We'll fix this. We'll make it right." But they didn't understand. It wasn't about fixing paperwork. It was about fixing the pain they never acknowledged. "I'm not coming back," I said quietly. Mom's face collapsed. Dad swallowed hard. Madison looked away, unable to meet my eyes. Later that night, as the crowd dispersed and the ballroom lights dimmed, I stepped outside into the cool Raleigh air. The streetlights glowed like soft lanterns, guiding a road I finally recognized as mine. My acceptance packet waited in my email. My future waited in Durham. My freedom waited beyond the shadows of my past. I tightened my jacket and walked forward, the memory of that first stolen letter flickering through my mind. In the beginning, Madison tried to erase my identity, but in the end, I reclaimed it in front of everyone she needed most. And sometimes the quietest victories echo the loudest, because the silence I chose at the start, the one no one understood, became the final answer she never saw coming.